Hello, and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm, brought to you by funkandstuff.net. This is the interview show that gets deep into the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I'm your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist and author of Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk. Get on over to Amazon. If you don't have a copy, you'll be glad you did. Whether you're watching or listening, as always, I thank you for your continued interest and support. My guest for this episode is keyboardist, composer, producer Monte Moir, best known for being one of the original members of Prince's dazzling protege funk band, The Time. Moir, along with Morris Day, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Jesse and Jelly Bean Johnson, were the killer lineup associated with two amazing albums of the early 1980s, the self-titled debut and What Time Is It, and then also 1990s reunion set Pandemonium and 2011's Condensate, using the pseudonym The Original Seven. Prince apparently blocked him from using the Time name there for what was otherwise a surprisingly terrific album that I rate as one of the best funk releases of the past decade. Among the Time's classic tracks were Get It Up, Cool, Wild and Loose, 777-9311, The Walk, Gigolos Get Lonely Too, and without Moir, Jungle Love and The Bird. While Prince wrote and performed much of the Time's first two records, the band proved itself in performance and style as a super tight, incredibly entertaining, and funky act in its own right. And over the years, the magnitude of the talent within its ranks made itself known as all the members went on to great success outside the group. I caught up with Moir in his Minneapolis-area home to discuss the Time's glory years, how they splintered just as they were rising to superstardom, and subsequent reunions and ongoing challenges. Also, his experiences and perspective on Prince, his subsequent work with Jam and Lewis on big hits for the likes of Alexander O'Neal, Janet Jackson, Cherelle, and others, and the 25 years he spent since the 1990s back with Morris Day as the touring lineup for the Time. Finally, also talked about what he's up to today. So the question is, what time is it? It's time to get MOIR'd, of course. I am very pleased to welcome to Truth and Rhythm keyboardist, composer, producer Monte Moir, best known as one of the original seven members of Minneapolis' The Time, that is. In my opinion, one of the baddest, tightest, funkiest, and most entertaining groups ever. Monte, how are you? So glad to have you.
I'm doing fabulous. Good to be here.
So you're coming, I'm sure, from Minneapolis, trying to thaw out, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're having a slow thaw here, but we're getting there. We dumped the other day, but it's melting quick, so we can handle it pretty well.
Yeah, you must have a strong back.
Yeah, I've got a snowblower. That helps.
Oh, okay. So ready to mix it up and talk some Minneapolis music?
Sure, whatever you want to talk about.
All right, great. Well, I want to just get rolling kind of with a little bit of your background from way back. Were you born in Minneapolis or thereabouts, and when and how did you first get into music?
Born in South Minneapolis. First got into music. I did the usual thing most people do: take a little piano lessons, a little guitar lessons over the years, and one thing led to another, and I started playing in local bands, and out of that we started playing with Flight Time, which eventually became The Time.
Did you have a musical family, or was that kind of?
Yeah, my mom played piano, always sang in the church choir. My father played trumpet, trombone. He played over in Korea. He had a band over there when he was stationed, and so yeah, I grew up around a lot of music, so definitely in the household.
And what was it about music that really just captivated you to pursue among other possible pursuits?
I don't know. That's the thing everybody gets into. You just start hearing something you like, and you feel it, and you want to hear more of it. You want to figure out how it's done. I really got interested in, I think, songwriting at an early age. We used to have all these songbooks around the house. All the popular songs of the day, and popular songs of my folks' day, really. And I was always curious who wrote it, who wrote the lyrics, and how does this work, and the chord changes, and kind of fascinated by that.
So who were some of the folks that you really kind of gravitated towards early on in terms of influence and what you like to listen to and also like to try to emulate?
Boy, I'm really all over the map, really. I mean, I was a huge Neil Young fan growing up. Crosby, Stills, Nash Young. A lot of the acts that came out of the Woodstock movie or the Woodstock era, Santana, like Burt Bacharach, I'm a big fan of. You know, there's like guys who can craft these wonderful pop songs, and I mean, I grew up listening to some country music, and that was going on in the household. Usually every Saturday night, the Grand Ole Opry. I didn't gravitate to it too much, but I was exposed to a lot of different types of music, and uh, got into some jazz as I was getting out of high school. I really got into Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea and things like that, and studied some classical music for a while, and sonatas and stuff. I didn't get too far with it, but and then I studied with a Brazilian jazz classical player. His name is Manfredo Fest for about a year and a half, and he was incredible. I learned a ton of things from him. And that was around the same time we were playing in Flight Time, playing funk music out in the bars, and so I've got a little of everything, I guess.
It seems like, you know, when you talk to the people that came out of Minneapolis, there's so many diverse influences. And I think that that is a credit to the great music that came out of there, because it's brought so many different influences together and distilled it out into something that was new out of all that.
Yeah, really, it really was diverse, because, I mean, as this story is told many times, there really wasn't black radio here except for KMOJ, which is a little station up on the north side, and it's got bigger, but back then you could only get it, I think, certain hours of the day, and only about 3 blocks away from the place. You know, so I grew up in the south side of Minneapolis. I wasn't exactly exposed to a lot of funk growing up, other than what I heard on pop radio and stuff. You know, the Earth, Wind and Fires, and, you know, a bit of James Brown, you know, a bit of this stuff. But I didn't really get into hardcore funk stuff until I was about out of high school. I just didn't know. People were like, "Have you heard this?" I'm like, "No, it was, you know," and that was a whole nother world there.
Mm-hmm. Is it true what they say about that area? You know, it's so cold that, you know, it helps because it keeps you inside woodshedding and coming up with all this music and really perfecting your craft.
I think there's something to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, the crime rate goes down in the winter. There's not much going on here. I mean, although people are really active in Minnesota, I grew up playing hockey, so I mean, I spent a lot of my youth outdoors, and there's always something to do, but it doesn't seem to stop anybody up here. But yeah, I think there is something to the fact that you get a cold winter, and it's easier to, there's less distractions sometimes. It's easier to sit down and hunker down and stick with your purpose, I think.
So I know you got a phone call through some friends or something like that related to Flight Time and filled in, and then it led to something. Could you sort of just recap how that went down?
Yeah, there's a couple of buddies of mine, David Island and Tom Lund, who played in Flight Time, who I went to the same high school with in South Minneapolis. And uh, most of Flight Time was Dean and them, Terry. They were up on they went to North High School. And I remember they played, I knew of them. They played at our homecoming, actually, the year before. Well, maybe it was our senior year, I think, perhaps. So I knew about the band, but I didn't know a whole lot about them other than what my buddies had played. And there was a night that I was in college, and it was the night before I had a final for some business class. And my buddy Tom Lund kept asking, he called me and said, you know, half the band didn't show up. There's only, I think it was Terry and Bean and Monk, who's the sax player, were there with, maybe it was Cynthia Johnson was there. She was there. Or maybe it was just the three. I don't know. They were, for whatever reason, they were missing a whole lot of people. And Terry had called Tom to come down, and I kept saying to Tom, like, I got a final. I haven't really studied for this thing too much. So anyway, he called me 2-3 times. I'm like, all right, screw it, let's go. And so I went down, sat in with him, and Terry asked me that night to be in the band, and just started going from there. So.
Well, it happened that quick. Just you played once, and it's like, hey, come join us.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I got a D on my business class, so I usually did pretty well, but I didn't do so well on that.
That's like a little footnote.
Yeah, I did recover though. So. Yeah, so we started playing in Flight Time from there, and I played for about a year and a half. When I first started, Cynthia Johnson was the lead singer, and then Sue Ann Carwell was there for a while, and then we ended up with Alexander O'Neill at the end, and right, right around then was the time Prince was coming around, rounding up some guys for the time.
What struck you about the guys in Flight Time initially? I mean, was there a instant chemistry? Did you just kind of like these guys, or was it more the music side? Was it also, a camaraderie thing?
I think all of the above. I liked them. There was a good camaraderie, and they were really serious about what they were doing. And they had which area in particular had its sights set pretty high. And some of the local bands I think, were more complacent, just to say, "Oh, let's get some work. Let's work 4 or 5 nights a week." And, you can never really make it thing. And Terry was always, "Yeah, you can." And partially because Fly Time couldn't get a lot of work either. I remember there was when I was there, we played some college gigs. We played a small club in South Minneapolis called the Nakarima, which was strictly mostly a black club, and then we played the Riverview Supper Club, which was mainly a black-owned club, and we couldn't get into the same gigs that a lot of the other bands were. And I remember one club owner, Terry, relaying to me that he says, I really like your band, but I hate to say it, but you got too many black guys in your band, and I just don't want to draw that crowd, in so many words. So we were limited in where we could play sometimes, and perhaps I can't speak for him, but I think that might have been part of the impetus to shoot a little higher and say, let's get out of here and see if we can make a go of this thing.
Hmm. What was the set list kind of like when you first started getting with them?
Mostly just the funk of the day. A little bit later, we did like at the Riverview Supper Club, we played a jazz set where we did some standards and quieter dinner type music because that's what they wanted for the first set. And then we would do things like Second Time Around, One in a Million, Paragon, George Benson stuff, just all the stuff that was popular back then.
So I heard Terry was very into P-Funk at one point, so I wasn't sure, how mainstream you guys were, if you went off on the deep end of the funk back then.
Terry was way into P-Funk. Yeah, we did. I don't remember doing much of that, but it was more of the stuff more of the radio stuff, I guess. Would say the pop stuff, even some pop stuff back then, some Michael McDonald stuff like that, the Rebellions and things. We were on a few of those, but.
So were you a quick study? I mean, did you pick up stuff by ear, or how much work did it take you to really get up to speed?
Really just listening to stuff, studying stuff. I don't know. We always kind of picked up stuff by ear, like the old school guys. They didn't have YouTubes and all that, so we would put the record on the turntable at your mom's house and put it down and try to go, what was that chord? And you got to pick up the needle and kind of try to get it about the same place. You might do that however many times you need to get the right chord or the right change or the right lyrics. That was kind of how we learned, most of us. And just playing together, kind of just working it out, trying to figure it out. To play it as close as you could possibly play it for the record. We took great pride in that. I mean, all these guys, you're a guitar player or a keyboard player, or whatever, you wanted to play like your idols, and so that was the way we did it.
So at that point, did you start to feel more of an affinity for funk?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was. I just like anything that I like, and it doesn't really matter what it is, but I like a lot of that. I got into it pretty quickly, and I got into it late, as I said earlier. But once I got into it, I was all the way in and hardcore about it for quite a while. It just gets in your blood like anything else in music, and you just start living it and breathing it and doing the best you can with it.
It is rhythmically different from some other genres. I mean, it's a music that, I mean, you really have to feel it, you know?
Yeah, you do, and you do, and I don't know. I guess I can't explain it. I guess you just start feeling it and playing it, and hope you can pull it off. And I guess that's what we're all doing. So, yeah.
Okay, so Monty, when did you sort of connect with Prince, basically? Let's tell that part of the story.
When I first got into Flight Time, they were recording a demo with Cynthia, and we did 3 songs, and I was kind of on the tail end of that, and I just came in and played some keyboard stuff. But that's when I first learned, oh, Prince wants to do something. What do you mean? And he said, well, he always told us when he got a deal and he got going, he was going to come back for us and help us out. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't know what to think. I don't know how much time had gone, maybe a year or so had gone by. But a year and a half. And the first time I met Prince, we it was kind of fun, though. To me, it was kind of fun. But we were the house band at the Riverview Supper Club in North Minneapolis, and somebody said, "Oh, Prince is coming down tonight." And I said, "Oh, cool, great, fun to meet him." And he comes down and pretty quiet, like everybody has always said, at least initially. And he said, "Let's." He wanted to sit in, so we go to sit in, and I think it was me and Dean, Terry, Prince, as far as I remember. And he tells me what to play on let's just do this on the one, and shows me the voicing and da-da-da. And we start playing Head, of all things. And so that was my first encounter with Prince, my first experience with Prince. And it was I mean, this guy was impressive, obviously. I mean, everybody else, I've been around some great players at that point. I mean, some really great players. But there was something about his presence when he got up on stage and started going was, it goes from here to here. The whole stage just elevates, it feels like. I even felt it back then that, it's just a simple thing such as sitting in, but I was like, okay, this cat, this is the real deal here. He's dead serious about what he's doing. And, he had I guess it was right before Dirty Mind came out. So he was kind of running through some of that stuff. But yeah, that was my first Prince encounter.
I saw Prince play in Santa Monica Civic back in 81. Actually, can you turn your speaker style back, getting a little feedback?
Turn mine down?
Yeah. Okay.
Is that better?
That's better. Yeah. So I was saying I saw him at the Civic in Santa Monica back in like 81. And when he did Head, he did a thing where he had the synthesizer on the one side and the guitar still on him. He was playing both at the same time. And I was just like, wow.
Oh, he's amazing. Just everything you could possibly, every adjective you could use was pretty accurate, I think. I mean, I've never seen anybody like him that could cover, I mean, I think everybody knows this, but I mean, who can cover the ground that he covers, from the musicality, the songwriting, the arrangement, the singing, the guitar playing, the killer keyboard player. He was a killer drummer because his business savvy, his drive was through the roof. I mean, we had never seen anything like that. The guy was nonstop, and he had a very singular purpose, and that's where he was going. Nothing was going to get in his way, and he did that. It's a rare feat to see somebody to be that focused and that driven to be a rock star.
Yeah. And
personified
so at
it.
that point, he had a pop hit already with "I Want to Be Your Lover" before "Dirty Mind" came out. So I'm imagining he was already pretty big around Minneapolis, or was it kind of thing where he was sort of bigger outside in the big cities, and
He's
locally
bigger everywhere else.
he was known, but maybe not a superstar yet?
Yeah, because there was no radio here. There was no black radio here. So everybody maybe heard of him, but nobody experienced. I mean, outside of the North Side community, which was primarily the black community at that time. And uh, when we first started the time playing, it's like I knew he was a big deal, but I had no idea how big of a deal he was until we started going to Detroit, uh, Montgomery, Alabama, and New York, and some of these other cities where it was this is way beyond what they're covering in Minnesota. But I think, maybe many reasons, but it probably wasn't until after, honestly, till 1999 when Delirious and all that kind of where he started getting some pop. Little Red Corvette, when he started getting some real pop play on radio, which showed up in Minnesota, that he really started to get some of his due in Minnesota. But before that, I don't think people knew as well as they should have.
Yeah, that's like right around the time they finally started putting him on MTV also.
Yeah, exactly. So, he got there though.
Yeah. So you played on Head, and you met him, and you got sort of into that camp. How did it progress from there?
Well, as everybody knows the story, it's Morris had written "Party Up," and Prince liked it and wanted to use it, and he said, "Hey, I'll give you some money, or I'll start a band." And Morris said, "Yeah, let's do a band." And so they started recording, and they'd done most of the first record by the time. I guess as anything anybody doesn't know it, most of the record was done, and then they started gathering people to be in the band, basically. And so Morris called me one day and just said, "You want to do this?" And sure, of course. And I think by that point it was me and Terry, and um, it was me, Terry, Morris, and Alex was going to be the original singer, Alexander O'Neill. And uh, we had a meeting at Perkins of all places with me, Terry, Alex. Um, I don't know if Jan was there or not. Maybe he was there. He probably was there. And Prince, and about how this was going to work. And by the end of the meeting, it was Prince had decided that he didn't want to use Alex, and that he was going to use that Morris would be the lead singer. And Morris was pretty hesitant at first, and he said, and Prince just said, "Well, we're going to make it work," and we did, because Morris considers himself mostly a drummer, and he's a crazy good drummer, by the way. I think people are starting to realize that now, but he's an amazing drummer. And he played on a lot of the early Prince stuff, really, all the early time stuff and all the Prince stuff. Not all the Prince stuff, but some of the tracks, which he's uncredited.
So how did you and the other guys in the band take the uh, the change with Alex being out of the picture? Was everyone cool with that?
I guess so. I mean, we didn't really know what we were getting into at that point. I mean, we knew that Prince wanted to put a band together and wanted to put a record out, and he wanted us to open for him, and we were just kind of along for the ride in a way. I mean, it wasn't really our decision to make, and I mean, it was, but as it, so I think we were just kind of going along. I mean, it wasn't our project and such. I mean, we didn't. He was helping us, and this is what he saw as the vision. And I mean, I was sad a little bit because Alex is such an amazing singer, and I'm really glad that he got his due and he got his own deal, and he got to do probably worked out best for everybody, frankly, because I think the time would have been a totally different band with Alex. It would have been better, worse, just different. Um, I think everybody probably ended up right where they should have at the end of the day.
So I'd heard, I don't know if it was a personality thing or a money thing. I think I heard a money thing, but yeah, they definitely would have been a very different band.
Yeah, we would have been a different band for sure.
So and this is the, of course, that first record. And man, when I first heard this, Monty, I was just blown away. I mean, there's only six songs on here, but amazing. I mean, and you know, Get It Up, of course, was the lead one. Cool with the cool cymbal dance and the stick. Three incredible epic jams, and then some good slow stuff too. What was your impression when you first heard what was going on here?
Well, I thought it was great. I mean, what he was doing was great. I mean, the work on that record was phenomenal. We Well, like I said, we didn't know what to expect about it. None of us did. We were just like, yeah, let's do this. You know, we're young kids. Let's go. This is a way out to get out of playing these local bars and stuff. And, Cliff was very singular in his purpose, and we followed him, because we believed in what he was doing, and rightly so.
I was floored when I first heard that. You know, it wasn't the Time musicians on that record, because I had seen and heard the Time, and you guys were so great. And it was just amazing to me that the musicality could be so impressive on that record and not be the Time guys, and yet the Time guys were so incredible also.
Well, that was our point of redemption for us. We always felt that on live, that was the way we could do what we do, or we could do what we do, I guess. When we had the first tour, I think we played 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes opening for them. But, we rehearsed for months and months, about 6 days a week, 5, 6 days a week, 8, 10 hours a day. Do a 30-minute show. We were ready to go by the time it was all. Every nook and cranny had been covered, and every part had been dissected. And, Prince worked with us the whole way and kicked our butt the whole way, and made us the best we could, made us better than we thought we could do.
What was he like when he rehearsed you guys? I mean, what did he really focus on a lot?
Everything. I mean, he focused. He allowed us to get to where we were in, I don't know, fraction of the time that he said it took him. He said it took him a number of years to figure out what to do, how to look, how to pace a show, as far as a set list goes, how to segue songs, how to do lighting, how to you name it. And he had already had a number of years under his belt how to do this, and he said, I'm going to show you guys how to do this so you don't have to go through what I went through. It was incredible.
When you say that, Monty, it reminds me that, one of the amazing things to me about him was just the way I thought that with each record for a long period of time, his progress, if you will, or his ascension was exponential. He would take it to such a new place and such a new level with each successive record. And I think that also you saw that in the way he did his shows and things like that. So by the time you connected with him, he had already come so far from like that first record in just a few short years.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. I mean, it was to watch this guy work was. I mean, people throw around genius, but I mean, he was just one of these guys who he was like a sponge. He could soak up everything. He could learn information really fast and apply it. And he wasn't a guy who sat around and talked about stuff. He just did stuff. And that was the big difference between him and most other people, I think. He just said, we're doing this. Well, when are we going to do it? Now? Okay. And then we're on to the next thing and on to the next thing. And it was phenomenal. Prince was a once in a generation, 2 generations kind of guy. I mean, everybody knows this. I mean, but it's watching him firsthand. It's amazing.
He didn't even
learn about things and what the musicality and the business and everything else. And learning to work harder than we maybe thought we needed to work, and we just kept pushing and pushing no matter what. And it caused tensions, a lot of tension sometimes, but at the end of the day, we were all better for it as musicians. So it worked.
Did you ever think early on what I get myself into?
I think we all did at some point. But at the same time, it was pretty exciting times.
Yeah. So who came up with most of the shtick? Morris's really cool persona. I mean, did that mostly come from Prince? And how much was that sort of like the real Morris Day?
Oh, there's a lot of the real Morris in there, but it's interesting because it wasn't a concept. It wasn't here's what we're going to do. It just sort of, this whole band just sort of organically grew out of a vision, and we stepped into it, but we also took it to another place, I think. And Morris is hilarious. Prince is hilarious. Some of the guys in the band are hilarious. And things would just start getting bantered about, and one thing led to another, and the whole shtick started. It was very natural, particularly between Morris and Prince, to riff on this whole cool business and the whole thing. But I think it worked so well because there was always it was serious, but yet there was a tongue-in-cheekness to it as well. I think if somebody was dead serious, it would have been, yeah, whatever. People found it entertaining, and it worked.
At the time, they're very different. But at the time, I remember thinking, you know what, this Morris persona, this character, this whole thing they're doing is the coolest thing in R&B since Bootsy. That Bootsy was this really charismatic front guy that was so cool, but he'd take himself seriously. And Morris Day, too, was just so cool and didn't take himself seriously and had that charisma on stage. And the band, too, was, the rubber band, Bootsy's band, was so tight. And the time also so tight. And to me, it just seemed like that was like the new version of this, but different. And I think, of course, if the time hadn't splintered, would have been so huge, I think, throughout the whole 80s.
Yeah, it's a shame it did fall apart. But there was a lot of internal problems and a lot of things going on, which I guess didn't allow it to happen from many fronts. But yeah, I just like the way it all came together because we didn't. Morris was hesitant to go up front at first because he sang stuff in the local band some, but he didn't see himself as a lead singer, and so we were all kind of going, okay, how's this going to work? Because he could sing fine, but how is this all going to work? We didn't know, and it all just evolved. And I think that's what helped its credibility to it, because it wasn't a concept. It wasn't throwing a boy band together. It wasn't nothing against that whole scene too. But this thing just happened out of nowhere. It just became what it was.
What about like the dance steps and things like that? Who kind of choreographed and organized that?
I didn't. I'll tell you that much. But most everybody else had ideas, and Jerome in particular was really good with he wasn't on board fully right away, but as he got going, he was more involved with that. But a lot of it was the whole concept was to keep something entertaining going on the stage at all times. So if Morris was over here with Terry playing, then somebody's over here doing something else, so that people are always looking at something. Your eyes are always getting drawn to something in some form or another, and so there was a lot of emphasis put on that to entertain. But it was really organic. I mean, somebody would say, "Okay, how are we going to step on this part?" And somebody or another would just go, how about we do this, or let's do this, and there'd be some laughing, and there'd be whatever, and then, all right, let's do that. And then we'd start doing it, and a lot of it was just taking old dances, which I never knew about because I'm not of that ilk, but and really just repurposing them into some. They were usually simple things because we wanted to try to do things where the whole stage could move at the same time, especially with me and Jan on keyboards, so that we're playing two parts, we're singing, and we're doing steps. So we were limited somewhat in as far as how much we could do movement wise. And we wanted, at least in certain things, everybody to be able to do, like the walk, what we're doing with the walk, or stuff like that, where it's we just made it work so that the whole stage would move if we could.
Well, speaking of the walk, here's that second record. Arguably better, probably. I think a lot of people probably would say this is the pinnacle of the Times records, but had Wild and Loose, 777 93 11, The Walk, Gigolos Get Lonely Too, another great record. Only 6 songs again. So when you think about it, the original Time before they splintered, there's only like 12 songs, but what an impact.
Yeah, it was crazy. I know the first tour we played all 6. I think we played the entire record because we only had 30 minutes. We had to fill up 30 minutes with something, so we basically played the whole record as far as I remember. But yeah, it was amazing. 12 songs, and all this came out of that.
So how'd you guys create this? So you actually got to go and do some studio on this one, right?
A couple of guys did. It was a little more involved, but I think that was part of the demise too. People wanted to be more involved in this point because everybody was writing songs, everybody was musical and wanting to be more involved, and some of the problem is I think people wanted to be more involved, and it wasn't happening at the rate we wanted it to. But
so there he is there. Looking sharp. Very sharp.
Well, that's a few years ago.
So, and then there was also this one that came out around that time, and I know it says at the time did the music on it. How was that one produced? Vanity 6.
It said he gave us credit for the production, but he basically did that record. I think there was one of the songs was partially written by Terry, and Jesse might have had part of the song, but it was basically his. For some reason, he gave us credit for the whole thing. We went on tour. When we went on tour, we were the opening band we were the band behind the curtain for Vanity 6. So.
I was fortunate enough to be at the Long Beach Arena. I don't know if you remember individual shows, but I was at the Long Beach Arena. They had the Vanity 6 opening, and then the Time and Prince. So it was a 1999 tour. And I remember just, man, you guys blew it away. And I think that was around the time when I heard that there were some tensions because you guys were upstaging the headliner a little bit, and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, there was some cities that he wouldn't let us usually play LA or New York for that reason, because we were kind of getting in his butt a little bit. But some of the reviews were coming back favoring us over him some nights, and that didn't go over too well. But that was our only redemption, was playing live for 30 minutes. That was the only way we could do what we did. So we took a lot of pride in that, because we were handcuffed in other ways, with some of our participation. But I remember the Long Beach show, and what I remember about it is we started playing, and I don't know what number Cool was in the set, but we started playing Cool, and I looked behind me, and Stevie Wonder was behind me, and he was literally like 3 feet behind me. And, he's doing the Stevie thing, and I just thought, oh man, don't mess this up. My monitor is right by his ear. Don't mess up.
No pressure.
That's an idol. He's an idol of mine. that point, I'd never met him, and I mean, it's just a surprising thrill to have him sitting 3 feet from you. That was the whole other world we were beginning to be introduced to. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Did you actually get to meet him afterwards?
That show I didn't, but I've met him since then. Yeah.
Wow. So it was kind of a Frankenstein's monster in a way that Prince created, right? Because you guys were upstaging him a little bit.
Yeah, people would say that to him. They said, "Yeah, he created a monster." And he liked it and he hated it. It was his baby, but so he loved it. He loved that we were doing so well, but he hated it because we were pushing up against him. But I think it really helped the competitiveness of both bands because it drove him, I think, to do more, and it drove us to push to do more as well. It was pretty competitive. We had fun with it, that's for sure.
And where did that phone number come from? The 777.
I was told it was Gaz Dickerson's number.
Oh.
And this was before area codes, I believe. And within a short period of time, he had to change his number, of course. He was getting phone calls at some ridiculous rate of speed, so he had to change his number.
Do you have a favorite cut off those first 2 records that you just enjoyed more playing or performing than the others?
I think 777 is a pretty amazing track. I've always liked Gigolos. Cool. It's always been fun. Give It Up.
How was it determined in the arrangements, what Jimmy Jam would do and what you would do and those kind of parts?
We kind of were pretty steady with it. Jam would usually do the synth bass, just about always, and we had a pretty simple setup. We each had an OBA, some variation of an OBA, Oberheim keyboard. And he had an ARP Omni, which is more of a string keyboard. And I had a piano and he moved maybe what was the bigger move? I forget. Something to play the pads and then an Oberheim. So Jan would usually play the bass lines and the string parts, and I'd play the piano stuff and the horn hits and the whatever else was pads and stuff. But we doubled up on as many things as we could because Prince was very meticulous about it. You can't not have your hand doing something. Even if there wasn't something playing, you needed to double up, triple up, find an elbow or something to play another note somewhere to make it bigger. And this is before the whole MIDI thing started and all that. It was in the beginning stages of that. So whatever we played on one keyboard that was it. So we filled it up pretty well. That was all.
Yeah. So things splintered. You had Friction. Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis famously were let go after the getting snowed in Atlanta, I believe, which is very uncommon.
Yes.
And for SOS band work they were doing, but you guys they finished the tour though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was in February, maybe. I'm not sure of the dates, but then the Atlanta show, and then I think we were done by April or somewhere about.
But they knew they were on the outs already, so that must have been kind of weird.
No, they didn't know they were on the outs.
Oh.
Nobody knew anything. We just did the show, and we played the show in San Antonio, and Lisa was off to the side, and Prince was off to the side playing bass, and we just, did what we could, and that, Prince was clearly not happy, but not much was said. He probably knew it was maybe the end of the road, but he didn't. None of us knew that was going to happen.
So what was your reaction when that came down?
I thought, well, that's over. I'm done.
Nice ride.
Huh?
Nice ride, right?
Nice ride. Yeah. I mean, it was disheartening because, we were all good friends at that point, and we did see this thing really going further and further, and And I thought to get rid of those two guys was, just not a good move as far as the band went. But then again, there was so much tension by the end of the second tour. There were internal tensions and tensions with Prince, and it was just not fun in a way by the end of the second tour. So a month or so after they got fired, I decided to leave, and then I think it was right before Purple Rain was starting. I think I went to one of the Purple Rain rehearsals, and I just went, I'm done. Just for many reasons, I'm good. I'm done.
Your heart wasn't in it at that point, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. It was just too much of what I didn't want, or what anybody didn't want. Conflict and people leaving, and this whole unit that we took so much pride in was being torn apart, and that was kind of it for me.
Were there kind of cliques in the band at that point? Is that why certain guys stayed and some guys didn't?
Not really. I mean, we were at that point. We were all pretty solid together. It was more, I think, problems with Prince. I guess at that point, he was very much a controlling person, particularly then. Um, and just things happen, just like many other bands. Just things that falling apart for many reasons. We wanted more involvement. We wanted more everything. It was hard to come by, and people wanted to be more creative. We wanted to do more things, and some of that just wasn't happening at the pace that we wanted it to. It's too bad because there was a lot of talented folks there, and if we could have found a way to make that work, we could have been together for a long time.
Definitely. And I was pretty shattered when I had heard that because I was such a fan. But then still when this came out, and half the band was still there, I was kind of surprised that it was as competent as it was, considering what was going on behind the scenes. I mean, there's some big hits on there.
Oh yeah.
Were you surprised that they had pulled off this record like they did?
Not necessarily, because like I said, Prince was at the helm, and with him at the helm, and particularly in those days, I just felt like anything he touched was going to work. It was going to work big, and everything. For I don't know how many years. It didn't seem like no matter what band he got involved with, or what song he sent to Sheena Easton, you name it, whatever he got involved with became a hit. So that really didn't surprise me.
What about the explosion phenomenon that Purple Rain became? I mean, you were on the inside there for a while. I mean, knowing how talented he was, even, did you think it would get to that kind of level?
I don't think anybody did. No reflection on his talent, of course. Just to have a movie go that big, period, is a rough go, even with a big studio. I don't think anybody foresaw that. I don't think Warner Brothers foresaw that. I'm not sure he foresaw that. In his words, from what I heard, he was really just trying, or I guess he said this later on the Free Bridge, but he said these movies he was doing were just a vehicle to promote the music. He wasn't trying to make fun with it. He was I don't know if he likened it to the old Elvis movies, but it was more in that vein of trying to do good work and try to make a good movie. But it was all about forwarding the music. My understanding.
At that point, though, did you still appreciate the fact that he was shining this light on Minneapolis, because that movie was so Minneapolis focused too?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it was incredible. Did great things for the city. First Avenue Club, and phenomenal. Really, yeah.
So, Monty, for the uninitiated, how would you describe the Minneapolis sound that came out of that era? What distinguishes it?
I would put Prince at the helm of it. If you're talking about the R&B sound that became what they call the Minneapolis sound, I think I guess you could, in one respect, boil it down to production, where you had, Linn drum machine, you had Oberheim keyboards, and you had these keyboards playing horn parts, which a horn player might normally play, or a facsimile of that. And rock guitar, I mean, I don't know how you explain it, but it was raw. It was you'd watch the meters on these songs, and the levels in the studio would just be pegged. And Prince liked that because he felt it sounded more frantic. That from an engineer standpoint, it was wrong. Because, you're not supposed to have things distort or have things in red. This is the days of analog recording. So, but it saturated the sound so much that it became, I don't know, it put on a different character. But he loved it because he felt it sounded frantic. He liked that, the energy that he got out of it.
To me, the distinguishing thing was really, especially just the use of the keyboards for the horns. It was done so creatively; it just seemed amazing that no one had done it like that before. But
Yeah, in a way, it's such a simple idea if you think about it. I remember we were rehearsing one day, and this was early on, and he came over to me and said, "Well, here's what we're doing. We're going to do this horn part like this." And he said, "We don't really have real horns, so we're going to do it here." And he tweaks the knob to get it to how the horns were. We don't have real horns, so here's how we're going to do it. Okay.